So good afternoon, everyone. Thank you for joining us. I'm Hannah. I'm the digital media librarian at the Bangor Public Library. And this is another of our series that we do in partnership with SCORE on different topics in entrepreneurship and small business. So today we're going to be talking about market research using a product from Reference Solutions that is available to you with your library card. Before we get into today's topic, I will pass things over to Donna from SCORE to just say a little bit about their organization and what they can do to help business owners.
Hey, thank you, Hannah. Welcome to everybody who's attending. I think you're really going to enjoy the presentation that Ryan's going to do. SCORE, if you don't know about it, we offer free business advice to people who have a business idea, to people who started a business, to people who want to exit their business. So kind of we're there for the whole journey in your business area. And we have about 120 mentors in the state of Maine. And so what that means for you is we offer some really good resources no matter what your business type is. And typically, if I have a client, I will then ask other people who have other specialties, for example, in marketing or finance, to join me. So you get not just one SCORE mentor, but usually there's a team of people who can help you. And typically we meet on Zoom, but we can also meet in person. And I think you're really going to enjoy today's session because one of the things we always advise people about is to learn more about your competitors, to learn more about your market before you start a business. And Ryan is going to be sharing really an excellent tool that will help you develop. With that, I'll hand it back to you, Hannah.
Thanks, Donna, and welcome to everybody who's been joining the call as we get going here. Today's topic is about doing market research with this tool from Reference Solutions. This is a digital product that's available to anyone with a Bangor Public Library card that you can access from anywhere with your card number. So you do not have to be a Bangor resident to get a Bangor Public Library card. We issue cards to anybody in Maine for free. So feel free, to get in touch after this presentation if you don't already have a library card. We can get you signed up for one. I'll send out some information about that process to the registration list once I send out the recording as well, probably the next day or two. But for now, we are going to have Ryan Atkins, who is an account manager over at Reference Solutions, who's very familiar with this product, to show you kind of how it works, what you can do with it to help your business with market research. And just know that, after you learn about the basics from Ryan, the folks at the reference desk at the library are also available to help with any questions as you learn to navigate this software. So I will hand it over to you, Ryan, to get going.
Thank you, Hannah. And thank you, Donna. Appreciate the introduction. I work for Data Axle Reference Solutions with public libraries as an account manager, supporting library subscriptions to Reference Solutions, which, as you're about to see, is a very useful product. It is a database that allows you to conduct market research, create lists of sales leads, generate lists for various purposes. So what I intend to do today is kind of give you an overview of the database, show you some of the more commonly used modules within the database. And at any time, like Hannah mentioned, please feel free to unmute yourself, ask a question, or you can pop a question into the chat. And Hannah, I will ask, please, as I'll be presenting, since I won't really be monitoring the chat, if you could chime in if you see something come through. So thank you.
Will do.
Without further ado, I'm going to share my screen and we'll bring you to the Data Axle Reference Solutions landing page. So this is, like we mentioned, accessible through the Bangor Public Library. Every time you access Reference Solutions, you'll want to go first to the library website and then click on the link to Data Axle Reference Solutions through the library website. Enter your library card number, which Hannah implied you located anywhere in the state, they'll allow access, which is fantastic. And then you'll be brought to this landing page after entering your library card number. Now, the heart of this presentation will be spent in the US business database, where we'll apply a number of various filters to try to narrow in on the types of businesses that might be useful for you. And I'll show you how that works. But there are these other modules, as we call them, 11 total, and all of them are very useful for various things. Before going into those, there's some other stuff from the landing page here that you might otherwise overlook. So let's take a look first at the top here. In this black banner under webinars, you'll find links to regularly held live webinars. They are held Mondays, Wednesdays, and Fridays, actually other days of the week as well, and on various topics, everything from like a librarian's introduction to reference solutions to webinars that are tailored more specifically for entrepreneurship. And these are free and available to sign up for through this link. In the Learning Center, you'll find various print materials and resources, including training guides. Here, let me take a step back here, actually under marketing and training materials, you can find database overviews where there are written descriptions and directions on how to navigate the database as well. So a good resource should you want to go back to something that I cover that I go over in this presentation and get more information on it. You can find that in database overviews here in the Learning Center. And then next to that, under releases, is a list chronologically listed of new updates and things that have been added to the database. So maybe some of those attending this had used reference solutions several years ago. We actually used to go by a different name. We used to be Reference USA. And we've been in public libraries as a resource for public libraries to offer patrons since 1997. So been around for a while. And only in 2020 did we change names to Reference Solutions. So coming back now, maybe you've used Reference USA or Reference Solutions in the past, you can find some recent changes under the Releases tab. Now, here, we've recently moved this button to register for a personalized account from the bottom of the website to make it more noticeable here to encourage users to register for a personalized account. In doing so, you just provide your email address and create a password. And then every time you log in, you have the ability to save your searches. And in essence, this isn't actually saving your search results. Rather, it'll be saving all of the various filters that you used when generating those lists, so that if you do go back 6 days, 6 months, 6 years later, you'll be able to bring the most recent results out of those same search parameters that you had created previously. So I encourage everyone to register for a personalized account. We also have a mobile app. And then just down here, in addition to Hannah making herself and her team available at Bangor Public Library at the reference desk to help with questions, we also have a team of people here at Data Axle dedicated to answering questions from patrons and librarians alike. And we can be contacted through this link here at this email address, or we have people answering inbound calls at this 800 number, 9 a.m. to 5 p.m. Central Standard Time, Monday through Friday. So please use us as a resource in addition to the library. We're here to help. And now let's talk about these modules. So Data Axle is proud to be a leader in data quality in the industry. In order to stay on top of having the most up-to-date data, we have to update these databases with a degree of regularity. So all of these databases are updated at least once a month, with a few exceptions where the U.S. New Movers Homeowners database is updated weekly with information that we get through a partnership with the United States Postal Service. And then the U.S. Historical Businesses database is updated actually once a year. This database is where we take records of businesses that we know to have closed the previous year, and in one big data dump, if you will, we move them from the active database to the Historical Businesses database in the first quarter of the year. And you can see there are quite a few records in here. Let's go into the businesses database and we'll start to look at how to conduct searches and at some of these filters I was talking about. So anytime you click on a database, you'll be brought to a quick search page. Here you have a limited number of filters you can use when trying to locate a company. So I could enter their name or an executive's first or last name, or search a geography through city or state, or do a reverse phone number lookup. I'm going to jump straight to the advanced search page where we can see the other available filters. And I can get to that by clicking on this advanced search tab or the additional filters tab. So here you can see, I mentioned the available filters. You can see on the left-hand side here, all the available filters I can use when trying to look for precisely the type of business I'm looking for. So as I go through and I'm thinking of searches, I'll give kind of hypothetical situations, but keep in mind, for you personally and your entrepreneurial endeavors and your small business, how can this help you? So for example, looking at some of the more commonly used filters would be business type, trying to locate businesses that either are in competition of your current business or businesses that you could potentially market to, for example. And you can narrow those down in a specific geography and by business size. Maybe it's the case that the size of the business is going to be pertinent to your search parameters. Maybe you don't want to contact businesses that have too few of employees or too small a sales volume for what it is you're trying to sell them, for example. So just kind of keep that in mind as we start to look at some of these filters. But now I'd just like to go through just how to apply filters and how to navigate searching. So anytime you click on a filter, let's take executive title, for example. A box will pop up in the middle of the screen, which will allow you to then manipulate that filter to your liking. So for executive title, I can have these titles to choose from that are available in the database. And let's select, say, religious director. Once it's selected, it moves to the adjacent box and I can click on it again to remove it. Now, without adding any other filters, so across the entire database, I can update the count to see how many religious directors there are. In here, I could view these results by clicking above, but I know that there are 228,000 or so religious directors that I can view. And then I can add additional filters. And anytime I click on any additional box, that filter will pop up below. And I can then add, however I manipulate that filter to my current selection. So perhaps I want female religious directors. Can update that count and see there are 68,000 or so of those religious directors that are female. So that's in essence how it works. I'm going to show you some of those commonly used filters, starting with business type. So I'm going to deselect these here. Now, when looking under business type, we have two options. You can look under major industry group or do a keyword search. So if I select major industry group, you can see that I have these 11 categories to choose from. And I can branch out under each one of these categories. Now, these categories weren't arbitrarily chosen. These are the way that businesses identify themselves when getting licensed from the government. And it's broken up by the SIC codes. So that is Standard Industry Classification Coding System. The first two digits of that code will break it up into one of these 11 categories. And if I expand, you can see the second two digits thus would break it up further. And what Data Axle does is where the SIC codes stop between 4 and 6 numbers, Data Axle adds numbers out to up to 9, so we can get more granular in how we identify businesses within the database. So rather than stopping at agricultural services, perhaps I wanted to look specifically for tree trimming services. Well, the SIC codes wouldn't identify that, but with the codes that we've thus applied, we can identify tree trimming services, and we can see there are records of over 5,000 in the database. And so if you would like to locate particular industries, again, maybe competitors or potential clients, you could look through the major industry group, or perhaps more quickly, you could use the keyword search. And then I could just type in tree trimming and search, and then tree trimming would pop up, but then also like results would pop up as well. So if I wanted to include additional services, then that count that originally was a little over 5,000, that's going to grow. So now I have over 38,000 records that I can view. So I briefly hit on SIC codes and what they were. But in addition to SIC codes, there are also these NAICS codes, which stands for North American Industry Classification. Perhaps you're already familiar with these coding systems, but if you're not, the NAICS or NAICS codes are yet another way of identifying businesses, and they started being implemented and used on all businesses in the 90s when the US entered NAFTA with Mexico and Canada as a way to standardize those codes between the three countries. Both coding systems are still used, and it is the case sometimes that we have people that have, say, lists of SIC codes. They already know the codes, and they can bring that list in here, and they can type in, rather than a keyword, they could just enter that SIC code into the search bar and look it up that way. Now, explaining the difference between all SICs and primary SICs are the same for the NAICS codes. Well, to illustrate this difference, I like to use the example of like a Walmart. So Walmart's primary SIC code would be that of a department store. Their primary SIC would be that of a department store. However, they're also often an automotive center and a photo lab and a pharmacy and many other things. So those would be secondary, tertiary, and so on codes that they would also use and identify with. So if I wanted to make sure that Walmart showed up on my list of results for photo labs, then I'd want to search all SIC codes. Similarly, another example is if I was looking for restaurants in an area, but I wanted to eliminate from my results, say, like bowling alleys that also serve food, or movie theaters that also serve food, those businesses that weren't first and foremost restaurants, well, then I'd search primary SIC only, and then my search results would bring back just those restaurants that weren't other businesses that serve food. So hopefully those explanations are making that clear for you. Let's go ahead and get to a results page so you can see what that looks like and see all the really useful information that's there. So let's look up manufacturers. And for this, we're going to add an additional filter. We'll look in my home state. So clicking on city and state, scrolling down. Spelled that wrong, my apologies. All right, so now we're just looking at manufacturers in Wisconsin. I'd like to update the count first just to see the number of records I'm working with. Got 1,402. And then viewing these results, brought to the results page. And there's a lot of useful information available from the results page. Not the least of which is just available in these columns, right? We can look at any executive names that are attached to those records. And when clicking on an individual record, you can see an additional management directory. I'll show you that in a minute. Street address, city and state, phone number. This last column under corporate tree indicates whether or not there's a parent or subsidiary company. So if there is this like lobster looking like icon, I can click on that. And I am brought to the diagram of that corporate tree here. So you can see this particular manufacturer has three subsidiary companies, all in Racine, Wisconsin. Now, one of the things that I think makes data axle reference solutions particularly useful are the data visualization tools that are incorporated within it. So those are in the form of like maps and heat maps and charts. And from here, you can find like the charts tab, for example, where it'll take the filters you've already applied. And in this case, remember, it was manufacturers in Wisconsin. And the charts will automatically give you the top 7 results by these 4 categories. So by city starting with, and then I can go to by zip code, or I could choose sales volume for a pie chart. And these graphs are readily available to download, print, upload into your PowerPoint presentation, what have you. So that information is available right there. So in addition to charts, we have heat maps. Here we can get a, don't know what happened there. But we're familiar with heat maps. So I'll try one more time here. But looks like something went wrong there. But if you could imagine that we'd have a map of the state of Wisconsin here, and then you'd have where the highest densely populated area of manufacturers were would be the darkest red and the lightest light green. And I'll log in a different way in a little bit at a good segue to show you that. So at the individual record level, there's a lot of good information as well. So if I click on A&E Inc. here, we had used that as the example, looking at the corporate tree, you can get a lot of information, including contact information, location information, whether or not there are job postings, and we have a partnership with ZipRecruiter that will populate job postings here. An industry profile here, getting back to those coding systems, you can see the primary SIC and NAICS codes listed here. Business demographics, where we have location sales volume. This is going to be an estimate that Data Axle provides of the location sales volume based on a number of things, including the type of industry, the competitor's sales volume, the size of the business, etc. If it's a publicly traded company, however, we'll have whatever is reported in their sales numbers. Otherwise, it'll be an estimate. Important to note. And then I mentioned the management directory. We can see here that we have a number of different executive titles within this particular company, and so on and so forth. So there's really a lot at the individual record level, a lot of information there for you to research. If it is the case that perhaps you have some inside knowledge and you know that there's something that is incorrect with how the data is presented, maybe you know that Chris Lang stepped down as director and now Jeff Gessler moved up into that position. And if you'd like to see that change made, because though Reference Solutions does make over 25 million phone calls a year out to businesses to allow them to self-verify data, it's not always the case that we can get those people on the phone to help us verify things like the management directory. Through the data feedback button here, any user can go ahead and enter any change that they'd like to see made and add a note, submit their name and email address, and we'll email you after the submission is made, indicating we received it, and then email you again after we've had a chance to verify that it is an accurate change that needs to be made, and that we'll go ahead and make it. So know that that's an option for you as well.
Ryan, we did have a question about downloading the records. I don't know if you plan to talk about that in more detail, but my experience has been you can just download a page of the search results at a time. Is that correct?
I can go over that right now. It's definitely something I intended to go over, and I don't see why now is not a good time. So
let's do it.
Let's do it. So every library is given a certain maximum number of downloads available per search. So most are between 250 and 500, and Bangor Public Library has 250 downloads available per search, as indicated in red here in kind of small print at the bottom of this page. So That is to say, we could still download all 1,402 results, but we can only download 250 at a time. And it's kind of a process, and I'll show you the most efficient way to do it. To start with, we're going to want to highlight the records one page at a time. So there are 25 records per page. If I click right here next to company name, I will have checked off all 25 on the first page, and I can go to the second page, click on the next 25, and it indicates 50 have been selected. And what I'll do is I'll end up doing this 25 at a time, 10 times to get those 250 allotted records highlighted. Once I've selected the 250, I'll click on download. Excuse me. And then I can select the file format and the level of detail I'm interested in. And when I download those records, an Excel file will be generated. And from here, I would just open this and I would copy and paste those results into a separate master Excel file. And then I'd come back to the results page. And remember, to get 250 records, we went pages, we highlighted pages 1 through 10. So if I go to back to the search and I view the results again, when I come back into this page, all of those check marks will have been removed. And then I can just jump to page 11. And then for the next however many pages, I do 11 through 20 for the next 250 results. And then I rinse and repeat. I download, copy and paste those into my master Excel sheet, and then come back and do that again. So it is a little bit time consuming, especially when you have people that are looking to download tens of thousands of records, for example. However, this is the quickest way to do it. I do get asked if there's a shortcut from time to time because of how much time it takes. But in essence, by making it this somewhat like more tedious process, it's keeping bots and otherwise people looking to scrape the data from being able to come in and download those tens of thousands of records at once or more, all the records in the database, for example.
That's super helpful. So just to kind of paraphrase that, the checking off, you can only check off a page at a time, but the check marks will be retained as you move through the pages. And then you can download up to those 250 records in one go before having to kind of refresh the search and start again.
Correct. Yeah. Thank you, Hannah.
Super.
Yeah. All right. So let's take a look at some of these other filters, and we'll start with one that allows us to look at more data visualization tools. And I think to do this, I am quickly going to log in to my personal account because I saw that the heat maps weren't working, and we'll get that addressed immediately after this call, but I want to make sure for the purpose of this presentation that if there was something with Bangor Public Library's connection with the mapping system, that we'll just be able to avoid that by logging into my personal account. Okay. So going back into the US Businesses database and under advanced search, let's look at, let's say, the example of breweries, one I've used in other presentations. I find this one hits kind of close to home because I'm from Wisconsin, where there's a long cherished history of brewing beer. And I'll select brewers manufacturers. And then I'm going to click on this map-based search under geography here. So rather than selecting the state of Wisconsin under city and state, I click on map-based search and then open map. And then I'll zoom into a particular area. So let's look at Milwaukee, Wisconsin. If any of those attendees, people attending are familiar with Major League Baseball, they might know that Milwaukee is home of the Milwaukee Brewers. All right. Now, there are 4 different ways to conduct a map-based search. One can draw a shape, define a radius, select a boundary, or create a drive route. We'll look at each one of them here. So starting with defining a radius, let's say hypothetically that I was looking at breweries because I was looking to open up my own microbrewery or nano brewery, and I was going to do so outside of Milwaukee and Wauwatosa. Maybe it was important for me to know currently how many breweries are currently located within a 2-mile radius of downtown Wauwatosa. Well, I can create a shape here and see that there are 4 results. And from here, I would click done and then view results, and I'd be able to see that results page with those 4 breweries listed and get information on those. The second way to use the map-based search is by drawing a shape. So similarly, like creating a radius, in essence, what I'm doing is just making any polygonal shape. Maybe I wanted to see how many breweries were located within this interstate system. Perhaps it was important that the brewery I was looking to open was within walking distance from residential neighborhoods that and pedestrian bridges wouldn't cross these highways. I could create this shape and see there are actually no results of breweries in this area. The next way is boundary select. And here you've got 8 different options for selecting a boundary. As you can see, area codes, metro areas, counties, zip codes, cities, carrier routes, and neighborhoods. Right now, states has been selected, so we're zoomed in a little too close to see the state line. But if I look at, say, zip codes, for example, I could select any number of zip codes that made sense for my search. Or looking at the smallest of the boundary selects, I could look at carrier routes, for example. And here, my understanding is that when doing direct mail, you can sometimes limit how much cost you're incurring by limiting the number of carrier routes that you're sending mailing advertisements on. And so maybe you'd find those carrier routes with the highest number of results for your search to include in your direct mailing campaign. So that's carrier routes. And then the last one was creating a drive route. So returning to the tools here, if I select drive route, I'll be asked to enter a starting address and an ending address. So here, selected my hometown of Madison, Wisconsin, ending address, Milwaukee, Wisconsin. You can be more specific and enter a street address, or you could just enter a city or location. And then the buffer distance is how much distance on either side of the road that Google Maps is going to determine is the quickest way from point A to point B. We're going to search. Actually going to create a shape to search within. So if we do within a 1/4 mile of either side of that route, you'll see that shape is created along Interstate 94 connecting the 2 cities, and that there are 9 breweries there. And I always thought, among other kind of implied values here, I think of people that perhaps are in outside sales that are already needing to drive to visit clients in particular areas. And this would be a way for them to make really well-informed decisions on where else they maybe need to stop along their drive route when they're already planning to travel somewhere. So those were the map-based search tools. Some of the other more commonly used search tools are business size. So here you've got number of employees and sales volume, and you can see how they're divided up here. So maybe I'm looking for breweries, and I didn't end up selecting a geography, but let's go back to Wisconsin. But maybe I don't want those breweries that are either too big, like the Miller Brewing Companies or Pabst Brewing Companies, but maybe I don't want those breweries that are too small, that are just perhaps like home-based brewing businesses. So just looking for those middle-sized ones, I could update that count and get very specific about those type of breweries that I'm looking for. Similarly, with sales volume here, you can see how these are divided up as well. Less than 500,000, 500,000 to 1 million, and so on and so forth. So I just encourage all of you to come. I don't have time to go through each filter individually. Kind of looking at some of the more commonly used ones was the goal here. So I encourage you all to come back and play around with all of them and see if there are ones that are useful for you in your search endeavors.
We did
In
just
addition,
get a question,
Sure.
if I can jump in with that. Camden
course.
wants to know, what if your business is primarily online and digital products?
Well, if your business is primarily online and digital products, I guess it depends on who it is you're trying to locate. You can definitely find businesses that only have web addresses. You can find businesses that only have certain social site links. And you can also look for businesses that are home-based businesses. And these are ways to help kind of narrow in on particular businesses that maybe are solely online. However, there is not a filter to narrow in, I guess, solely on online businesses that don't also have brick and mortar institutions.
And just to highlight a couple of questions and comments from earlier, back when we were talking about customizing downloads, Tom, who's used this product for a long time, mentioned what's neat is being able to choose the data elements you need so you can customize the download rather than the full record. Just wanted to highlight that is a nice feature. You don't have to download every single piece of information about those records that you're saving.
Absolutely.
And David asked earlier, when we were talking about kind of limiting the number of downloads to prevent bots and the data getting scraped, he asks, so there is no web API that could be used to access this data?
So I guess I don't know how to answer that question, to be honest. So this data can be accessed in a number of different ways through Data Axle. So Data Axle, in addition to having the product reference solutions, which is what you're getting a demonstration of today, they also have a product called Sales Genie that has been in the market for 20 years that both gives businesses the opportunity to use a very similar type of resource for creating their own lists, but then it has a number of different functionalities that allow a business subscriber to help with their list generation. There are also quite a few other products that get more and more involved in how much Data Axle is involved in the campaign in question. So they can run your direct mail or digital campaign for you, more or less. So the information being available through a web API, I don't know how to answer that directly. My apologies, but know that there are other ways to access this information, and can get you in touch with the right person at Data Axle if you'd like to talk about that.
Thanks, Ryan. I think that's all the questions for now.
Okay. So let us pivot here. Although I did want to mention, just going through this list of filters, that in the same way we were able to conduct a keyword search, you could also do this exact same search by clicking this omit button and just to omit all those results. And a thing that was a filter that was added somewhat recently was this ability to omit ATM and kiosks with one click of a button, understanding that people looking for financial institutions often weren't looking for the addresses of their ATMs and kiosks as well. So, all right, to pivot here, I'm going to go back to our main navigation page the landing page by clicking on reference solutions at the top here. And this in essence will just reset everything. And I'd like to show you the US Consumer Lifestyles database next. Like with the business database, I'll be brought to this quick search page. And from here, I'll go directly to that advanced search page to look at all the available filters. Rather than selecting with the US business database, I would select, I'm going to show you here actually, because it's something I overlooked, and my apologies there. But with the US business database, it's going to select verified records first. So something I overlooked when initially going through here is that we've selected verified businesses, and of those, there are 19 million records. If I want to include unverified businesses, those are businesses that we haven't, through online means or through making those over 25 million phone calls a year, been able to actually verify, then we can see that count jumps up to over 100 million records. So depending on the type of search you're doing, depending on the deliverability of the results you're looking for in terms of how accurate that data is going to be, there's significantly more that are unverified. Okay, now getting back to the US Consumer Lifestyles database, rather than having that verified selected, instead, you'll have the number of contacts per household selected. So if we want to have all contacts per household listed, stay here, or we could do one per household. Think of if you are doing direct mail campaigns and don't want to inundate people's mailboxes with multiple of the same flyer or advertisement, you might just want to select one per household there. Now, rather than looking at things like number of employees and estimated sales volume, here we have filters like looking at the estimated home value of an individual, or the estimated home income. And what I'd like to do is show you some of these lifestyle searches next. So clicking on the lifestyles category, and see through a third party that we work with, we've been able to give a score of everybody, all the 322 million consumers in this database, between 0 and 9 of the likelihood that they'll have an interest in any of these categories. If they score between 6 and 9, then they'll be included as having a strong interest to actually populate in your search results. The way that people score high is through tracking things like web-based activity, credit card purchases, things like store memberships and magazine subscriptions. All those, cookies that we agree to when we're entering a new website, they end up somewhere. And one of the places they could potentially end up is working their way into our data acquisition process to determine whether or not people have interest in these categories. And we can expound these categories out one. So say books and magazines, for example, it's not all encompassing, but we can get more specific in what types of books and magazines. Let's actually do a search here and look at people that are perhaps interested in golf. And let's give an example close to home here for you. And let's look for people who are interested in golf in Bangor. And I can update this count and view these results. And like with the US Businesses database, there's information available from this page as well. It does say where phone numbers are available, that they have not been, it's not been determined that they're on a do not call list or not. So to be compliant, you need to do the due diligence to ensure that. And then you can see not all phone numbers are available either. It's less than 50% are. But interestingly, looking at a heat map here, you could say, maybe you're looking to open up a golf retail store, or otherwise are interested to market to people that are interested in golf products or services. And you can see where people who are more interested in golf are located. I often wonder if I overlay this with a map of household income, if it would overlap some because of golf being the more affluent sport. But know that this is information that's readily available to you and quite valuable for getting started creating your own lists of sales opportunities when reaching out to consumers. And then on the individual record, there's detailed information here as well. Here's where you can find estimated household income, home value, particular lifestyles, interests. This isn't foolproof. I looked myself up and I don't have any lifestyle interests, which couldn't be more further from the truth. I have a lot of hobbies, but apparently the way that I have been conducting my purchasing and otherwise have been tracked have kept me from landing on this. So that is to say that I encourage you all to poke around and see how it can be useful to you, but it is not, like with any data acquisition, it's not going to be 100% accurate. Now, this was the lifestyles category. And I'm going to kind of wrap up the lifestyles and show you the new movers homeowners database here. But I want to point out that anytime you use any of these filters locating people under the consumer snapshot, rather than being brought to a page where you have individual people's names and records, you're going to be given a summary. So this is, in a very sensitive space of what should be made available to the public or not. This is where I guess someone decided a line would be drawn. You can look up things like how many in a particular demographic or particular geography, how many people are married with children present who also are interested in golf. Let me remove this and view these results. But now you'll see, I apologize. For Bangor Public Library, you won't be given these exact results because that consumer snapshot field is turned off. Because I'm on my internal account, you can see it right now. But you rather will be brought to a summary page. All right, if we're all still following me, let me head out and go into the go into the new movers homeowners database here. And I understand I am packing as much information as I can into a very limited amount of time. And I do tend to talk kind of fast. So I do encourage you all to enter those questions into the chat. And I'll also be wrapping up here for a little short Q&A at the end. So have those questions ready. So the new movers homeowners database, similarly, I'll go straight to the advanced search page. And I'll use an example of how to use this that I use when talking to librarians, because I think it's something that it's a good way to really show library staff that I work with how reference solutions can be a useful tool for the library if you consider the library a business. So if it's the library's goal to get out and reach the most people in their community, they could use the new movers homeowners database to help them. And a way they could do that is by coming down here, and we can select city and state, and let's go back to Bangor. And then let's look for people who have moved, not necessarily just down the street or across town, people who are already library card holders, but rather people that have moved from at least, let's say, 20 miles away, or let's say 50 miles away, and then up to a maximum of an arbitrarily high number. And then for a time frame, maybe it's the case that as a librarian in charge of this, I'd want to go in every month and see who has moved into the Bangor community within the last month that I could potentially reach out to, send a piece of mail to that has an application for a library card, that has information on upcoming events on our events calendar. Well, I could say for the last month, I could update that count, view those results. And here I have a very manageable list of only 20 people that are on record to have moved into Bangor in the last month. And I could see, not even needing to necessarily download these records and upload them into a Miller label creating software. With this view, you might even just be able to handwrite them out, reach out to these individuals, and then go back next month and perhaps run the same search next month and do the exact same thing all over again and see if you can get more people interested in the library that way. So
Right. I think you mentioned the answer to this question earlier, but someone just asked how current the data is in the database. You said that new movers, homeowners one is updated pretty frequently, right?
it is. It's updated every week, and it's updated every Thursday evening, Friday morning. So when people kind of start their days on Friday, they can expect it to be updated.
And then can you remind us how often the other databases are updated?
Yeah, absolutely. So all the other, well, it used to be the case that the business database was updated weekly as well, but that has changed to monthly. So all of the other ones are updated monthly, with the exception of the historical businesses database, which is updated annually.
Thanks.
Yep. And then certain months will be, you'll see more changes than others, as some of the data acquisition on that end might happen quarterly or after a new source has been acquired and agreement has been made. And so you might have more significant updates and changes to the database one month over the next, but know that whatever is current on our end is going to be visible in the database once a month. Yeah, I will open it up for questions now. And again, I'll just encourage everyone to come in and take a look, conduct some searches, see how it can be useful for you and your business needs, and take a look at some of these other databases as well, as they can also be perhaps applicable to your needs.
Great. So if anyone has questions and you'd like to speak up, feel free to unmute yourself and ask, or you can keep tossing them in the chat. Donna, did you have a question or a comment you wanted to make?
Just really reminding people as kind of business owners, what an opportunity to really target market. And one thing I think Ryan did not show, but I believe is part of this database as well, is to take a look at potential competitors. You kind of showed like how many breweries as an example, but then you could deep dive and say, how many employees do they have? How many square feet? So I think as you're building your business plan, particularly going to the bank and asking for loans, there's just a great opportunity to kind of prove that you've done your homework, that there is a market for the service or product that you sell. So really would highly encourage you to utilize the database, and Hannah is a great resource for that in terms of a local resource. And again, the Portland Public Library also offers this same service.
And Camden asks in the chat, how do I leverage this for customer discovery? So a slightly different use from that competitor research.
Absolutely. I think when I transitioned to the U.S. Consumer Lifestyles database, I kind of showed how you can look for particular customers based on their interests. If you're looking to target consumers, but if your customers are businesses, I guess it would just depend on the nature of your business. But if you're targeting businesses, then much in the same way that we use the example of looking at breweries, you can really get very specific in what you've identified as your target customer and find those people using those filters.
From EMDC says, as a longtime user of the US businesses piece, this presentation went beyond my expectations. I did learn a few new things that I will utilize in the future. This is a great tool for business planning, job seekers, and just knowing your community or region.
I have a question.
Yeah, go ahead.
So I let's see. So MailChimp, I've used MailChimp for email marketing. And for example, last night I sent an email out because I have an online course ready to start next Saturday, but we don't have the minimum number of people to join the course. So I sent out the MailChimp email. I mean the marketing, they call it campaign. So I sent that out to I think it was 167 people, but those are people who signed up for my contact. They gave me their contact and their permission to send marketing email to them. So is this a tool that if I was to find some potential customers by getting email addresses, but is there an ethics issue involved if the email addresses are being provided through the tool? Is that okay to use those emails, or is this a tool that you can get emails from?
That's a very good question, because it is not. It is the case that we have records of email addresses for a lot of those records that you'll find, both consumers, individuals, and those executives at businesses that you'll see listed in the management directory, but they're not made available through reference solutions.
Right. So I wouldn't expect to get email addresses from. So it's more of a tool for just getting an idea of what kind of interest. Like if I want to do some research on the topic of my course and how much interest there is in a region, that would be a central idea for using this tool.
Yeah, I could see how it could be helpful for you in identifying the decision makers or otherwise people that you might want to target and send emails to. You wouldn't be able to get the emails, but you could get their names through the database, and then perhaps through other methods track down their email addresses. Of course, if you're trying to track down thousands of email addresses that way, it might be more cost effective or efficient doing it a different method. But if you're just looking to contact a smaller number of people, I could do it that way. DataAxle does also sell email addresses. This isn't a pitch to try to make money for the company, but it is something that people are interested in, and we often get phone calls about from users of reference solutions. So you're welcome to look into that further as well.
Okay, thank you.
But the info in the database could be used, for example, for like a direct mail campaign that you could download addresses of people that you've identified as having an interest in a particular topic and send them a flyer or a brochure or something with a QR code and ask them to sign up for your email list.
Right, so it's more for direct mailing. That's as opposed to email mailing. Yeah.
100%.
Okay, thank you.
Right. Well, we're just about at 1 o'clock. Are there any last questions that people want to ask Ryan? And if you play around with the tool and have more questions down the road, as Ryan said, there's resources available directly through DataAxle, or you can contact the reference desk at the Bangor Public Library for any questions, and all our staff there are trained on how to use it.
Oh, and thank you to Jen for making the suggestion for using Facebook ads. Yeah, I have used a Facebook ad in the past. So thank you for that.
Great.
I just put my email address in the chat as well. So please, if anyone would like to reach out to me directly with any follow-up questions, don't hesitate. I'd be happy to talk to you.
Wonderful.
Thank
And
you.
then we'll be having another presentation next month scheduled for February 5th, but that the library and SCORE are putting on with information about getting grants for your business. So if you're interested in that, you can sign up on the library's web calendar. I'll include that info to register for that when I send out the recording and the other information from this presentation as well.
Thanks to everybody for attending. And if you'd like a SCORE mentor, just go to score.org and you will be able to get some one-on-one mentoring to help your business be successful. Thanks, Ryan. This was just superb. I have been through this a few times and I learned something new every time.
Thank you for having me. I really appreciate the opportunity, and I really hope that some of the SCORE members take advantage of this resource through the library.
Great. Thank you
Thanks,
so
Joe.
much, everybody. Have a great day.